This segment of Black's Worm is dedicated to Tunnelese, who died in February 2002. Black's Worm, Part 2. It was 1852, and Fitzroy Black, owner of Black Foundries, had an appointment with some members of the Swiss watchmakers' colony. He stroked the head of his pet cat, Black Velvet, and she purred contentedly. His Scottish benefactors had helped him relocate to Norfolk County, Upper Canada, and had then secured contracts for him to manufacture a new type of a marine engine, the Stirling steam engine. That had been a year ago, and Black Foundries had done very well. Out in the engine test sheds stood a line of 10 of the engines being test-fired for the first time. Boompa, 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 came the noise from the sheds as the new engines were fired up. On top of the engines sat their muffled stacks, which alternately spewed out clouds of black smoke, steam, and fizzling sparks. The cat Black Velvet had gotten used to the sight, smell, and noise of the infernal machines. After a while, she got up, stretched, and jumped off Fitzroy's lap. She found a new spot on the unfinished new engine factory's floor and curled herself up to sleep. About an hour later, Charlie Babbage, an older man of 65, and some of the ladies from the Swiss colony entered the grounds of the foundries. They marveled at the sights around them. Off to one side, a Simcoe Manufacturing Company alligator amphibious scow was being modified. Beside the hull lay a Stirling steam engine, as well as piles of coal and wooden kegs containing hydrogen peroxide fuel for the Stirling. Though Charlie knew it not, the same Scottish ladies who had hinted he ought to meet the Virginian named Fitzroy Black were the same Scottish ladies who had funded Black's Foundries. His party moved their wagons to the factory building they were directed to and rolled the wagons through the open doors. Introductions were made, then Charlie and the head watchmaker carried one crate to the center of the factory floor. Inside was what looked like a telescope mounted on gearworks. On one side of the telescope tube was positioned 2 spin dizzies. Fitzroy bent down and keenly observed the device's mechanical workings. He could see that below the glass globes extended 2 hair-strand-thin shafts into the gearworks. Charlie's assistant lit up a nearby bright lantern, whilst Charlie wound up a spring in the device. As Fitzroy watched, the device began to whir and click, and its telescope swung over till it was pointing at the lantern. The lady watchmaker picked up the intensely bright lantern and walked to and fro. The telescope tube moved to and fro as the device continued to track the bright object. Finally, its spring ran down and it whirred to a stop. Next came the Cricket. This device ran on wheels, and 4 lanterns shot out intense beams of light from its left and right sides. Fitzroy could see that the lanterns were angled so that their beams would cross at a certain distance from the body of the device. Charlie made some adjustments to the sensing tubes and wound up the spring whilst his ladies fussed and oiled over the gearworks of the machine. Then the lever was thrown and the clacking machine rolled to the right towards the factory wall. Just when it seemed it would crash into the brick wall, The two beams of light it was shining on the wall intersected to form an even brighter spot of light. The device slowed, stopped, and went rolling in the other direction, where it repeated the cycle. Finally its spring wound down, and it was time for a peek at the next of Babbage's creations.